thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you please share with us a little bit about your own background? Where did you grow up?
Yes. Well, I consider myself to be a very Afropolitan woman in the sense that I am Nigerian, but I was actually born in Canada. And my name, Simidele, my full name, means accompany me home. Because I was born in Canada, and a few months after I was born, I accompanied my parents back to Nigeria. And then I lived in Nigeria until I was 6 years old. And then my parents moved to the U.S., and I pretty much grew up in the U.S. Until 5 years ago, I had the opportunity through my work to come back to Africa.
Yeah.
And I currently live and work in Johannesburg, South Africa.
So, who inspired you in your early days?
It would be hard to point to one person, just one person, but I think, early on, I took a lot of inspiration from role models that were in my home. My mom is a strong woman, very educated woman. I always saw her work ethic, and that was an inspiration to me growing up. As I got older and started getting into sports, I started then adopting some sports heroes. Serena Williams is one of my favorites, actually. And when I was young, we're about the same age, actually, her and her sister, Venus. And I vividly remember all of their breakthroughs in terms of what they were doing in the sport of tennis.
Right.
And they had those iconic beads that they would wear in their hair. And so for me, that was always something that was a point of inspiration, seeing athletes that looked like myself in a space where a lot of people didn't look like us. And so that was really an inspiration for me as well. And I love the likes of Jackie Joyner-Kersee and other great athletes like Mia Hamm. These were people that were inspiring to me when I was growing up.
And Simi, what was your dream career as you grew up?
Well, when I look back, way back when I was like in first grade, I wrote down that I wanted to be a doctor. And I grew up in a family of scientists. My dad is a university professor in pharmacology and physiology, and my mom was a high school chemistry teacher. So sciences were a big part of my background and what my parents really were experts in. And so I think I kind of naturally was going down that path because I thought, well, and everybody, wants to be a doctor. That's very prestigious and sounds good. And that's what I wanted to be early on. But as I was growing up, I kind of developed a love for kind of more the space of communications and specifically journalism. I used to read and write a lot as a child, and I enjoyed it. And so that's actually what I studied in university. I have a bachelor's in journalism and a master's in communications.
Right.
And I thought that I was going to be a television reporter, and that was the dream.
Right.
It was going to be Simi, either, at the Olympics, which was one dream, but if that didn't work out, my other plan was to be on the sidelines reporting at the Olympic Games.
Okay. So we might still see Simi TV one day.
You still might. That's still actually a dream that's been rebirthed. When the actual sport dream manifested, I've actually really been giving some thought to, wouldn't it be cool to tap back into that journalistic space, because that passion has never left, and I still enjoy reading, writing, communicating, and now I just do that through marketing. So in my job now, I'm a marketeer, working for one of the biggest global brands in the world, and what I market is what I love, which is sports. So I work at Nike, and I lead the running category, and we basically do as much as we can to get people excited and connected to the sport of running. First and foremost is that making that connection emotionally, and then obviously it's all about our great products and everything like that. So
I believe Nike, the brand, was born from a running shoe?
Yes, we started as a running brand in Eugene, Oregon, at the University of Oregon, with a track coach and a track athlete. And the two of them just felt that there was a better way to make shoes, and they wanted to really serve athletes. And from there, they started prototyping some different shoes, and they started selling shoes out of their van. And then it's grown to what we know as Nike today, which is, this amazing brand that's all about great athletes and great products. And so, yeah, I tell stories. That's my job, to tell those stories of our great
Right.
athletes. So,
Now, you're an athlete yourself, and I believe you're the first African Winter Olympian in bobsleigh. How did you get into that?
yeah, so that was never on the plan. I had an Olympic dream that was more in Summer Olympics. And so I grew up playing a lot of different sports, but track and field was the sport that I excelled in the most. And so I went to the University of Kentucky and I competed in track and field there. And I really, really thought that I was going to be a Summer Olympian. That was my goal. And I worked really hard at that for many years. In fact, I used to train at the U.S. Olympic Training Center when I was living and working in the U.S. Because I wanted to fully dedicate myself to that dream. And I put everything into that. And I came really close to making that 2 times. And 2008 was the last Olympics that I tried for track and field.
For the U.S. team.
For the U.S. team. So,
Oh, wow.
yes, I tried for the U.S. team because I am also a U.S. citizen.
Right.
And so the U.S. team made sense at that time, and I was going for it, and I came very close. And so when that didn't work out, I felt good that I had given it my all, and I was satisfied with my effort, and I just decided to move on to other things in life. Fast forward, I come back to Africa
Right.
in 2013 for a job opportunity. And when I came back, I was really excited. I mean, from a professional standpoint, I really feel like there's a lot that you can learn as a working professional working on the continent, because the continent still has so much in terms of business and branding opportunities. And I really feel that you can be at the forefront of shaping the possibilities. So that excited me. But then there was something deeper I felt when I was coming home and back to living on the continent, that I felt that there was a personal kind of calling for me to do something specific to move the continent forward.
Right.
And of course, that's very vague, but I was really just excited about being back in Africa and the potential of the continent and my possible individual contribution and what that could be. I just didn't
Right.
know what. So then I saw an article about the Nigerian women's bobsled team. This was at the end of 2016. And mind you, I had not competed competitively as an athlete, as a world-class athlete, since that time in 2008 when I decided to move on from track and field. But when I saw that article, and it was talking about how the team had this really audacious goal to make history and be the first ever team from Africa to make it to the Winter Olympics in the sport of bobsled, something reignited within me. The athlete within me was awakened. And I just felt like that was something I needed to look into. And what struck me about it was not only, obviously, it's exciting to think maybe I could go to the Olympics, maybe now I could finally make it. But outside of my personal desire to go to the Olympics, I felt that there was something really powerful about making history in that way, and really being in a space where Africans shouldn't be in. When you look at it on paper, I mean, we don't have the climates necessarily to support winter sports. And there's a lot of barriers, that should be in the way. But I thought it was really cool that there was this collective of these athletes saying, you know what, we're going to do it anyway. And I was just immediately inspired. So I reached out to the team, and I thought, how can I be a part of this, was my first question to them. And so through the course of just talking to them, I got to know of the tryouts that they were having, and I decided to try out for the team. I felt I had nothing to lose, and I wanted to go for it and be a part of that quest. It turns out, though, that bobsled wasn't quite the right timing to be on that team, but I was introduced to the sport of skeleton, which I was not familiar with at all. And somebody just showed me the sport, and I got to know the sport a little bit better, but it was still very scary. Skeleton is a very daring sport. But again, it came back to this idea of how can I, in my small way, serve my country and be a part of moving the narrative of Africa forward? And that's what excited me. Even though I was scared to death of what this new sport is, or was at the time, I just felt that it was something that I absolutely had to do. And then I began the quest to ultimately qualify for the Olympics and become the first African woman to do so in the sport of skeleton.
So what was the experience like to go down in the skeleton the first time?
Absolutely terrifying. There's no way to sugarcoat that. I was very scared because your body is not prepared for that. I had never experienced anything like that before, and most people haven't. I mean, who, puts themselves on something about the size of a tray and goes flying head first down a frozen ice track at 120 kilometers an hour? Most people have never experienced anything like that, and I hadn't either. So I was really scared my first time, and I just had one goal, and it was simply don't scream. I felt if I could just get through and not scream, then that was success. And so it moved from, just not wanting to scream. Then each time I went down, it got better and better, and I started getting more and more comfortable and less fearful.
And I believe now your ambition is to win a medal in 2022.
Yes. It took me a while to finally get to the point where I can confidently say that, because everything about skeleton was so new. My path was very unconventional. When I discovered the sport, I essentially had just less than 4 months to figure it out and qualify for the Olympic Games, which is a very short timeline. Most of the women that I competed against at the Olympics have been doing the sport for 10 plus years. So to come in and try to learn a new sport like that in 4 months, was actually quite ambitious. So coming off of that Olympic experience, the question was, what was next? But for me, the first question is, well, I never even planned this in the first place. So before I answer what's next, let me just get my head around what just happened and try to understand, what the future could be for me. And for me, it boiled down to, quite simply, do I feel that I have the talent? Am I capable? And do I want to continue to keep blazing this trail? And the answer was, unanimously yes for all of those questions. And so for me, I really feel that I have the talent and I have the desire, and so why not? Somebody's gonna have to get that first medal from Africa at the Winter Olympics. So why can't it be me? And why can't it be,
So that's going to be 2022
yes.
in? Where is it going to be?
In Beijing.
Beijing?
Yes,
okay.
Beijing. So I have Beijing right on my radar. That's the focus. And I'm really excited about that possibility. So I've already started training, and I'm going to see what I can do to achieve that goal.
Are you looking for sponsors?
Sponsors are always helpful. So sponsors are definitely needed, especially in a sport like skeleton. It's very costly. So a lot of it is about having the best equipment. Some of these sleds cost up to $30,000 US, which is, a car,
Right.
So you need sponsors to help you with those type of things, the equipment, the travel, making sure you have access to the coaching that you need, and just everything that goes into being an Olympic athlete and competing at a world-class level.
Right.
So definitely sponsors are going to play a role in supporting me to help get to that goal.
Now, Simi, looking back over your career, what would you say was a major turning point?
Career as an athlete, for me, what was a turning point was just the disappointment that I faced in 2008. Again, I was going for Beijing then too, ironically. But that really became a defining moment when I had poured my whole self into making that goal, and I didn't make it. And it was very, very disappointing. And basically for me, it taught me how to deal with disappointment, how to come out of it, and how it's not over till it's really over. I thought it was over at the time, but I think that disappointment set me up to really appreciate, this achievement that I now have made, because I know what it's like to not make it. So now having finally broken through and have the chance to be an Olympian means so much more to me because of the disappointment that came before.
And tell us, Simi, what is driving you today?
So I think what drives me is not only, obviously, like I said, it's great to be an Olympian and knowing the years and all the ups and downs that it took to get to this point. That's awesome. But what continues to drive me is what the significance of my journey has been and what it means to helping move the continent forward. I've been doing a lot of work since I returned from the Olympics, just mentoring girls, and I've rolled out a program which is a leadership and sports masterclass, which is all about teaching girls how to be change makers. And I'm really trying to give them the tangible tools so that they can also be leaders, and so they can also experience the power of sport. And so for me, this has become bigger than just me. It's about what I'm doing, and through the experiences I have, that I can share with the next generation and really inspire them to dream without limits. And for me, that's what this is all about. What looks impossible, what looks like it shouldn't happen, can happen. And so there's no reason that anyone from anywhere can't do anything. So it's really about how I can take this and continue to share that knowledge and inspire the next generation to really dream without limits. That's it.
Now, Simi, as a leader, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
The future of leadership. The future of leadership means really taking that responsibility seriously. And I think leadership looks different for each person. Not everybody's going to do it the same way. Not everybody's going to have to do it in the same area. I think we all have our areas where we can make impact. And I think it's really about, as a leader, knowing where you can make the most impact, and then also knowing how you want to go about doing that. So I think as long as everyone's coming from a place of authenticity and driving the path that they think they can make the most impact in, that's what leadership is all about. But they have to accept the call to be a leader and the call to take ownership of whatever unique space they have and drive that through.
And Simi, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
I've learned from my own journey that it's really about two things. One is the ownership. So I think everybody has to make a choice, and everybody comes to that space where it's easy to look for someone else to do it, but sometimes you have to get on that sled, whether it's scary or not. And as a leader, that's taught me so much, and what I've been through my sport, and kind of making that decision and saying, I'm going to choose to be the first because I know that I can. Will there be challenges along the way? Of course. But I can't wait for somebody else to do it. I think this is a gap, and this is something that I think we need to solve. I'm going to be the one to do it. So the ownership piece is really important. And then the second thing is timing. So I think sometimes we put things off, but things are happening now. We live in a fast-paced, moving culture, society. There's things that are happening around us every day, and sometimes we just want to wait. And what my journey has taught me is that you don't have to wait. Even if you just have, 100 days, like I did, roughly, between when I discovered my sport until the Olympic Games. It's about how you use the time that you do have, but you have to do it now. There's a sense of urgency, I think, around so many of the issues that we're facing in our communities. Don't wait. Act now. And those are kind of the two primary lessons I feel that my journey has taught me.
And Simi, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story with us where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
Oh, wow. What I'm surprised about is when I've been teaching and putting on these master classes, is how the girls and the young ladies that come through these classes really remember the things that I teach them. And that to me was very pleasant, because I think we're in an age where teenagers especially, they're on their phones, there's so many distractions. But when you get them in a room and when you just invest time into them, they really take what you say to heart. And one of the things that I've really been focused on is helping people reshape how they think about being first. And because my story is about me being the first African woman to compete in the skeleton at the Olympics, I tell them transparently, when I was at the Olympics, I got 20th place. That was dead last, but I'm still first. And there's an acronym that I've shared with them, which to me kind of embodies how we should work towards getting to our goals. So first is F is for focus. Being focused is really important anytime you have a goal. The I is for imagination. I really challenge the girls to dream big. The R is for risk taker. And of course, in a sport like skeleton, you would call that definitely taking risk. But taking risk, you don't always have to do something as extreme as skeleton. It's about getting out of your comfort zone. And then the S is for stamina. Any good goal sometimes takes perseverance to get to. And then the T is for tenacious, which is all about the determination that you have to get to your goal. So these girls take that, they remember that, and when I see them later on down the road, those are some of the things that they repeat back to me. So I really believe that they are taking that and really bringing it to life in their whatever goals that they have. Right.
And Simi, are there any role models of leadership that you would suggest future leaders should study?
This is one that is tricky, because I think we're all inspired by different people. Everybody usually has somebody that they look at and say, I like how President Barack Obama does this, or, somebody else does that. I think it's really great to be inspired by people, but what I try to encourage people to do, young ladies particularly, is to really identify the leader that they want to be, what they want to stand for, the values that they want to stand for, and how they want to show up. So take inspiration, yes, from the Oprah Winfrey's. We all have this list of greats, Nelson Mandela, and people that are really, really great, but they're great at being them. So find what you're great at being, take the inspiration you need, but also just anchor that in what you want to stand for, who you want to be, and how you want to show up. And I think that's, to me, the best leadership model is based and rooted in who you are.
Now, Simi, how can our listeners follow you?
Yes, so I have my social media. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My handle is Simi Slays. So Simi is spelled S as in sugar, I, M as in Mary, I, and then Slays is spelled Sleighs. So Slays is kind of spelled the European way. So Simi Slays, and then I'm also on simislays.com.
And last but not least, Simi, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own leadership?
There's lots of advice that I have, but I think don't minimize the value that you bring to the table. And I feel this way particularly as an athlete. Sport is often overlooked as kind of an instrument or vehicle to drive social change. But I think that what I've learned is that actually sport is the space where you have the most democratic path to do that. Sport is for everyone. Sport is a connector. Sport as an industry. And sometimes I think as leaders, we minimize kind of the opportunity that we have to really drive change. So I think just understand the value that you bring to the table and know that even if it's a small thing or a big thing, that we're all driving change in our own capacity, in our own way, and just continue to go through the journey and see what you can do.
Well, Simi, thank you so much. You are a great inspiration.
Thank
You're inspiring millions around the world. And your story reminds us that you can come first, even when you come last.
That's very true. And I hope to change that coming last in Beijing 2022. But yes, you're still first. No one can take that away from you. Some things are forever, and being first and making history like I did is certainly one of those things. And being a trailblazer, it's an awesome space to be in.
Thank you.
Thank you.